Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Olivia, and we're so glad you're here today.
Hello, sister.
Hold on, I didn't. Oh, wait, shoot, sorry.
What? It's recording.
Oh, okay. I was just changing her name. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, sister.
Ooh, that sounded ominous.
Sister, right?
Sister. Hey, how's it going?
It's fine. I got nothing to report.
It's fine. I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing to report. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I took my walk this morning.
Nice.
And I have been, do you know what cozy cardio is? Have you been following this thing on TikTok?
I have a little bit.
Well, I only know about it.
Though.
Yeah, I really only know about it because of our experts talk about it. Yep. Yeah, our experts did some press pieces on it.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of, we talked to Nikki Pebbles, who is a dance cardio.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing movement person.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, we talked to her and she, man, what a spitfire. Like such an energy, so beautiful. Her energy, and she's beautiful, but her energy was just so wondrous to like be in her orbit for that period of time. And so brilliant. She has just like a plethora of knowledge about like mindset and mentality and movement.
She's a scientist, I believe, right? If I remember properly, she's a scientist at heart and uses a lot of that in her like choreography.
Yeah.
And she was just amazing. She also talked a lot about emotional abuse.
Yeah, relationships. Yeah, it was great. It was great. A beautiful conversation with Nikki. So please enjoy this episode with Nikki Pebbles. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to A Fresh Story so we can keep telling fresh start stories. Nikki Pebbles is a rock star in the world of personal development and movement. As a lead performance coach at Google and the owner of the virtual fitness studio Rock Your Body Online, Nikki is all about empowering people to reach their full potential and live their most bold lives. With her master's in industrial organizational psychology and experience as a mental performance practitioner, Nikki knows just how to help people overcome self-doubt and tap into their inner strength. And if you needed any more proof of her expertise, just check out the list of top-tier publications she's been featured in, like Self Magazine, Women's Health Magazine, InStyle, Forbes, and the Times of London. Nikki, we're going to have to snag you to become a Fresh Starts expert. You were like what we love. I actually came across you, Nikki, on TikTok, which we get a lot of our guests from TikTok. A long time ago. I've been following you for a while, and with your bold, beautiful hair and your personality, and I felt a relationship with you, and we just found out that you're also from Long Island, so I guess that I felt something there. But we're super excited to have you here today.
Yeah, I am so excited to chat with you guys, and even more excited that we're all Long Island girls. So that makes it like even better.
That's a sisterhood.
It definitely is.
How are you doing today? It's a beautiful day here on Long Island.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like it's been really nice the last couple of days, but I'm doing good today. I feel like I got like really good sleep last night. I found like a really good, like, I feel like I'm in like my sleep era now where like, I'm like, okay, I know what time to go to bed. I have like a certain, like we're in it. So I slept really good last night. So
I'm jealous. Good. That sounds amazing. Let us know what your secrets are. Cause I
will, because honestly, like sleep honestly is something that's really a very big struggle for me. I am not a good sleeper at all. And I found like a couple of different ways now where I'm like, got it. It's not perfect, but like, I definitely I've found my way in it now.
Your root in. Yeah. That's how
my root in.
Like, your journey into sleep. That's awesome. Well, I'm jealous of the sleep, but I'm glad that you're doing well today. Why don't you take us back to the beginning of your Fresh Start story?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this and thinking about my fresh start, I think the biggest thing that really popped up, and honestly, you guys, I haven't talked about this. Like, you guys are getting exclusive, honey, because I have not talked about this ever. And I would say that this is probably, when I think about a fresh start, this definitely was it. So here we go.
Okay.
So it was about this time last year, 3 years ago. I was in a really horrible 9-year relationship. And it got to a point, I would say like February 2020, I actually left to go to California for a month. And this was right before COVID happened. I left for a month and I didn't know anyone out there. I literally left for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't have the guts yet to leave that relationship, but I knew that I really just needed to leave. And I felt like I had to, I created like, I forget what the excuse was, but I created some like work excuse to get out there because we owned like a couple of businesses together. So like I was like, all right, you know what? Let me like create like something out there so I have an excuse to go out there. I put this whole trip on my credit card. Like I literally took whatever money I had and I didn't know anyone out there. I was calling fitness studios. Again, this was pre-COVID. So like things were like going on within studios, calling different studios, being like, hi, my name is Nikki. I teach this. I would love to teach for you because I just wanted to grow the brand. I was pretty big in New York City in terms of fitness, but I really wanted to expand it onto the West Coast. So I was calling all these different places. And I was like, all right, I think I have enough studios that I could go out there and just make it happen. And got a hotel, got a car, rented a car out there, and just went and flew over there and spent 4 weeks in California making it happen. And it was probably the happiest I have been. And I remember that trip coming to an end. And again, it was February 2020. I was coming back the 22nd of February. And I remember just crying. I also like right on that date, I actually just found out I like there was this huge fitness competition for the next like fitness superstar. And I made the top 3. And I used it as a sign. Like to me, it was like the universe being like, girl, you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. Like, keep pushing your own brand. Because again, we ran so many businesses together. My whole brand was shadowed by him. And I could tell as I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it became this really weird, abusive shift, honestly, like verbally bad shift of like him losing control of me getting bigger. And I found out on the way home when I landed that I didn't win that competition. And I remember getting off the plane and him waiting for me. And I was just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. Like in my head, I was like, I can't fucking do this anymore. Like, this is not it. And then literally 2 weeks later, COVID happened. And I was stuck in a house. It was, so basically I spent, what was that? March and April, my whole industry was done, right? Like New York City fitness was shut down. So I decided I originally was planning on making an app, a fitness app before COVID even happened. And I already had things together. I was already taping stuff because I was planning on doing that anyway. And I was like, well, I guess I'm really going to jump into this. This is the perfect time to do it. And at the same time, I started TikTok and I started doing modification fitness and stuff like that on TikTok. And it started blowing up. And I was like, okay, cool, great. May 1st comes. I launched my virtual app. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. May 22nd comes and we break up. I decide I left. We got into a very big argument because I forgot to turn the sprinklers off. And that was it. I was like, no more. Like, I cannot do this anymore. I always say to people who really are struggling to leave a relationship, especially when it's so long like that and there's just so much trauma bonding and it's layered. It's hard leaving a relationship to begin with. It's even harder when it's just like there's so many things within it. And I remember waking up that morning and just being like, after getting the silent treatment and just being like, I gotta leave. Like, I gotta leave. I texted my mom and I literally was like, Mom, guess what? I'm coming home.
Yep.
And
we've been there.
And I literally packed my shit. I'm not even like in trash bags and left. And I remember pulling around the corner, pulling over and blocking him from everything because I was not playing. Like, and again, that was a big deal for me because it just felt, if anyone has ever been in a really toxic relationship, you know how tough that is to really just make that decision of like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this person's out of my life. And it was really, really difficult. And I blocked him, and I literally from there moved back into my parents' house. I continued to run my business. I also, that same month, signed up for grad school. So I signed up for grad school. I started my business, and I moved back in with my parents while grieving a 9-year relationship. I truly started from nothing. Like, it was all over again from nothing. And I feel like that was really, now that I think back, like, it's honestly like almost 3 years to the date. And my entire life is different now. Like, my entire life is different now. And I look back at that one, and it was a bunch of different decisions, right? But like that decision, not only to leave, but to block him and just say like, I'm not doing this anymore, was the bravest thing that I have. And most proud, when someone asks me like, what are you most proud of? That, like, it's that. And I think that's why, honestly, I've never, even just talking about it now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about this right now. But I haven't talked about it because again, I think if anyone ever has been in a toxic relationship, they know, especially for women, like we're always told that like we're crazy, or that like, oh, he would never do that. He would never do that. Oh, well, he did. He does. And I think I just always really took the route of like, I just want to build my life back up. I was so focused on building my life back up and healing that like the thought of even talking about it really just was not on the radar. I wanted to, I wanted to, but I think it was really, really scary for me for a really long time. Not because I was scared of him, but I just didn't want to deal with feeling people being like, that didn't happen. Or like, it's just extra shit that you really don't need to do. And now, 3 years later, I mean, it was the bravest thing that I ever did. I'm so proud of myself for doing it. It was not easy at all. It was there was a lot of trauma, honestly, a lot of PTSD, a lot of stuff that I still have to deal with. So it's still an ongoing journey of healing from that. But yeah, I think when I think back to like where that fresh start was, it absolutely, that was the push that kind of went with the dominoes.
Wow. I think so. I was in a 10-year relationship that broke up in June 2021. I was living in Queens with my ex. Not as toxic. It was kind of one of those, it was not as deep and it was not as high. It was just kind of bouncing in the middle, like the lows weren't low, the highs weren't high. But so I understand a lot of what you're saying. And I think this part of like this idea of like blocking someone. Now, I don't know how old you are, but I was 23 when my ex and I got together, and I was 33 when I left. And the idea that like it was mutual kind of, but like I was the one that was like, okay, well, this is done. The idea that I didn't know what was going on in his life every day after knowing this person so intimately for 10 years, right? From before my prefrontal cortex was formed to after. And so that I didn't block my ex because I didn't need to, but there was a time that I did when I went to go fly to Scotland to see the man who is now my fiance, when I was like, my ex was kind of still hanging around, and my friends were like, just block him. And I felt so mean, and it felt so scary, and it felt like in my situation, like, he doesn't deserve that, but it was the thing that I had to do, because they were like, you don't want to land in Scotland and see that he called you. Like, that's not going to be what you want. And so, like, the idea of like blocking somebody like that takes a lot of courage. And I wonder how that felt to like totally cut off that person from your life, after waking up in bed with them that morning.
Yeah, I think it was wild because I think it was wild for a multitude of reasons. I know for a fact it caught him very off guard because I never did that before.
Yeah.
Like, ever. I was always available, always waiting, always. I mean, because we broke up when you're in a 10-year relationship. I mean, like, I was same thing. I was 22 when we first started dating. I was 31 when we broke up.
Same,
so like that was, and he was 10 years older than I was.
Okay.
So like I was a child. You know what I mean? I was a child. I was a baby. I don't care what anyone says. I just now at 34 consider myself an adult.
Yes.
Like I'm
You're
just
a baby
getting
adult.
the hang.
Yeah.
I'm a baby adult. Like I'm just getting the hang of things.
Yeah.
At 21, 22, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
No.
And he took advantage of that. Like I fully stand with that, that he took advantage of that. And I tried in the past to block him and it just felt really impossible. And I think what was so different about this one time, because when I blocked him the last time, when I left that day, I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel scared. I was ready to do it because I knew. I was not even new. I was prepared for the consequences of what that was going to entail. Right. Meaning, I think so many times in the past, I stuck around because I knew if I didn't, he would have found someone else. He was waiting for someone else, or he had someone else and I didn't know about it, which happened too, right? Like I was in that situation as well. So I very well knew, and it stuck around just because my identity was so ingrained in that relationship.
Yeah.
So ingrained in that relationship. And I think what really was the final push for me was I sat back and said to myself, okay, you either have to choose your greatness or you have to, if you stay in this, realize that you have to abandon yourself in order to survive this relationship. Like it's one or the other. You cannot be great in this relationship. No. So you need to pick which one it is. And I just could not abandon myself anymore. Like I could not do it. Not choosing my greatness felt, especially because I was already getting success at that time. I was like, no way. There was nothing. And he said some pretty horrible things to me that day, but none of them would have stung as much as if I would have stayed in that position and abandoned my greatness. And it might sound cheesy, but like it was that serious. So when I turned that corner, me blocking him, I already thought out, he's gonna get another girlfriend. He's definitely gonna, like, I already know. And I'm okay. Not that I was okay with it, but I was okay with the idea. I wasn't gonna fight it anymore.
Right. You were ready. Right. You were ready.
I was ready. I was ready to leave. So it definitely is scary, but I am so pro blocking. It is ridiculous. Like in all instances, I just think that understanding that your energy is everything. And if someone has access to your energy, that is a privilege.
Yes.
And understand. And I think that comes with growth, right? I think once you enter your 30s, and that's why I feel like so many people shit on being in your 30s, where like as women we turn 30 and it's like, oh my God, you're gonna disintegrate. Listen, my skin has never looked better. I have never felt better. I have never felt more myself than I have had in my 30s. I only have gotten better. I
Mm-hmm.
do not want to go back to my 20s. I was
No, no, thank you.
I was
Fuck no.
broke. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
No.
Like at all. And I think of this idea of like influencers and people, what are actually influencers? It's not, and this is no shade to 20-something-year-olds at all, but influencers aren't 22-year-olds who are selling the best concealer.
No.
Real influencers are people who are older, who have been through shit, you know, who have been through shit and who are like, this is what I went through and this is how I overcame that. That to me is what a true influencer is. And that's how I really look at getting older, is like, I only grow into more influence by sharing experiences and things like that. It's so much more than just like, this is what I like. It's wow. I just recently interviewed someone. She's 51 and she just quit her corporate job because she wants to go chase her dreams at 51.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the type of influencer I want in my life.
Yeah.
I
100%.
love, right? Like I scroll through TikTok, I see these women who are single, child-free, in their 60s, dressing incredibly, living their best fucking lives. And I'm like, that is influence right there, because that's giving us a different description of what our lives should be, you know? And that, I think if I would have saw more of that within my 20s, I think I would have had a much different, and again, like that's what the story is, right? Like I've spent too much time going back and being like, I wish I would have left and I wish I've done that. And it is what it is. It happened. And here we are today. But I think that if I would have had more stronger women tell their story, then I think that I would have maybe gained a little bit more courage and clarity of what I deserved and who I was. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that I learned through that process.
Right.
And as I get older, I have such a huge sense of who I am as a person and what I stand for and what my values are and what I am totally unwilling to tolerate. And I will not apologize for that. Like I will not apologize for what I tolerate and my boundaries. If you don't like my boundaries, boo-boo, that's on you. If I'm giving you a boundary, that means that I love you. That means that I want you in my life.
Right.
And if you're going to react negatively to that boundary, that tells me enough. That tells me enough.
100%.
See you later.
Cosign, like honestly, cosign everything you just said. I mean, I think, you know, we talk a lot about how we do this podcast, we do what we do because your story can be somebody else's roadmap. And I felt so alone. You know, I was 23 when I got with him. I, you know, convinced him to buy an engagement ring. He bought it. He had it for 2 years. Like he finally gave it to me. It was like all a push pull. It was all exhausting the whole time. I felt so alone. I felt so ancient. I felt so old. I felt so ridiculous. And when I told my story on this podcast, you know, the first 2 episodes, we were like, we can't expect other people to be vulnerable if we're not, right? So we told our own stories. People were like, thank you for sharing that story. That's my story too. Or now I realize that you know, it doesn't have to be bad for it not to be good. Things like that. And it was like, oh, I'm not alone. I was never alone. And if a 27-year-old can be like, oh man, I'm fighting with my with my boyfriend to convince him to marry me. Like maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. That's what I want. And the more stories we share, the more other people see, like, I can do that. I can do that. And I can do my own thing too. And that's, you know, that's what we want, is to just be like, there are no rules, which I'm not wearing that sweatshirt now, but I was wearing it before. Like there are no rules. There are no rules in life. You just have to be safe and in the pursuit of joy, and like 100% cosign everything you just said.
Yeah. I mean, I literally restarted my life at 31. Moved back in with my parents, started a business and went to grad school and did that shit by myself. Didn't have anyone help. No one helped me. I was just like, all right, I got to do this. And that's it. And I never looked at it. I mean, did I feel some type of way moving back in with my parents? Yeah. I mean, I was 31. I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God. But at the end of the day, I'm so incredibly thankful that I do have parents who were like, I mean, my mom still to this day says that was the happiest sex that she ever got, was me being like, I'm coming back home. And living with your parents is a whole other.
I mean, we both are right now. Livy and I both live in our mom's house right now, so we get it.
I mean, look, I restarted at 30. Well, I got separated at 34, divorced at 35. I moved me and the kids back in with my parents to start fresh starts. I sold my house, and so I'm still here. And you know what? I don't have to pay a mortgage. I don't. I get dinner made for me. I'm like, guys, this is great. It's great. I have so many questions for you, Nikki.
Yeah.
So first of all, the number 22 keeps coming up in your life a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is that? What's the significance there?
So, what's so crazy? The house that I lived in during that time, that relationship, was number 22, which is wild. I graduated grad school August 22nd. Like, it's and my life number is 22.
22.
So,
that makes sense,
yeah. So 22, I think, is just a really, and I was born November 21st. So so everything always really happens big in my life around 21, 22, which is really, really fascinating to me. And I'm not quite sure what that's about. I know that the number 22 in terms of like life numbers is very about independence and about entrepreneurship and leadership. And even my name, like Nicole, means like leader of the people. And, I think that for me, I'm a big believer in like astrology and life numbers and all of that stuff. And I always have had that really big feeling of like I was meant for more. And really quick story to side note on that. I remember when I had to be like 24, 25. And I had a really big interview at NBC Universal at the time for this digital fitness company. So funny how all of these things just like happened before we knew the world was going to change. But for this digital fitness company at the time, they wanted me to run their social media for them. And I was really hesitant about it because at that time, like, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been a creative entrepreneur. That's always been what I always wanted to do. And I remember going on the train, coming back from like the third interview, and this woman sat next to me, and we just started talking because everyone just ends up talking to me and I talk to everyone. So I was just like chatting with her, and I was telling her about the interview, and she's like, well, you don't seem very excited about it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I know I'm meant to do more than just be in an office. And I really want to be like the next Oprah. And I just don't feel like this is the right path. She goes, well, then I think that you should go do that. And I swear to God, like every time I start to get like, what am I doing? I always just think about that because I really do believe that like we know, you know what I mean? We know. And it's so hard to keep on the path when you have society telling you like, this is what you should do. And it's scary. Listen, doing your own thing is scary. I will honestly say, like, as someone who's been in entrepreneurship for a minute now, and specifically again, like once I moved on my own and all of that stuff, and I was really, especially like after grad school, I graduated grad school last August, and it's dealt with severe burnout. I mean, severe I'm just getting to normal now. I was like looking on LinkedIn like a crazy person, like on LinkedIn, being like, oh, I need to get a regular job. Girl, what? While I have a thriving business, I love what I do. But I was just so burnt out. That
we get it.
I was like, I just want, maybe this is the way to protect myself, which is like bonkers. You know what I mean? Like not that having a regular job is bonkers. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, there's an argument for it, right? It's
protection.
Steady,
it's protection.
It's steady. It's like, you know what it is. It's stable. And this thing that we're all doing is not steady and stable. And it is a lot of work and it's exhausting. We very much understand what you're saying.
Yes. So many things. First of all, I too want to be the next Oprah. So I always tell people that. It's like my thing also. I really do. So but your energy, like for those listening, like Nikki's energy, we talked to a lot of people on this podcast. And we have this joke that we can tell what somebody's energy is going to be like the second they sign on to Zoom. And your energy is so beautiful and spiritual. You have a very deep spirituality,
high vibrational,
very high vibrational. So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised people talk to you and that you, and I have no doubt that you're going to go on to do amazing things. Like 100%. I can see it right now.
Thank you.
So like I said, so many questions. So
I'm ready for them. Let's go.
I'm just trying to like think about where I want to start. So when you were like a little kid, what was growing up? You grew up on Long Island.
Yes.
And so what was it like? Were you allowed to be full Nikki, or were there kind of like social constraints on you?
Yes and no. So I grew up dancing my entire life. I've been dancing since I've been like 3. And I think dancing for me has always been that release where I was allowed to be myself. I was allowed to be expressive and I loved being on stage. I mean, like I felt more comfortable being on stage than I did talking to people one-on-one. Like it just, I glowed. I felt it.
I get it. I really get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. But I think as I got older and like once I pretty much entered like elementary school, I think people really saw my light and didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I would be called weird, you're strange, I don't want to be friends with you. You know, and I was a very emotional kid. Very emotional kid. I definitely dealt with like, I'm neurodivergent. So like I deal with like ADHD and stuff like that. So, but back then, I mean, in the 90s, no one knew about that shit.
Too.
So like, I was just I'm very highly sensitive and people did not know about that back then.
Yeah.
So I was just a very emotional I had a lot of anxiety as I got older. Just because, I felt like I absorbed everything. And I started really getting like a lot of perfectionist tendencies because people were just assholes to me. And I just wanted to fit in. I just really wanted to fit in. So as I got older and then the body image issues developed and, all of that. And, when I was in 6th grade, I had a really bad situation with anorexia where like I stunted my growth and I lost my period. And it was just like, I think I was just constantly, because I was curvy. Like I got my period when I was 12 and it was like, bam, boobs and ass. Like I looked like I was 25 and instantly was sexualized by men and instantly was told like how bad but also good my body was. For women, I was told by women how bad I was, or instantly always humbled as I got older by people being like just saying really terrible things about me to my face nonetheless, like just really horrible things. And I just think I developed this coping mechanism of, well, if I don't show up, if I'm not loud, if I don't show my light, if I don't take care of myself and be my quote unquote best self, whatever that means. But you know what I'm saying? Like really stand in my power, people won't be mean to me. And I really kept shrinking myself and then ended up in that relationship where it just further had me shrink myself for survival mechanisms, like as a survival cope. So I just felt like it was always this story of like, I just wanted to be myself and did a lot of work of like, I would watch while I lived with my parents, I would watch videos of me like when I was like 3, 4, before I got into school. That was like big before I got into school and before I had people telling me I was like weird of what I was like. And it was always like a microphone in my hand, dancing, singing, Paula Abdul. Like I just wanted jock jams. Like I just wanted
Z100 baby. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to dance and I wanted to sing and I wanted to talk. And I like anytime there was a camera in my face, I mean, like I was like, oh, so I kept looking back at those and being like, that's who I am, right? That was me unfiltered, who I really am. And I think also too, like, I have really great parents, but I think as you get older, you realize the funny thing about getting older is that you realize that your parents are human, and you realize that your parents were growing up as you were growing up. And you know, I love my parents so much, but my parents are imperfect humans too. And I think that I was definitely that child that my parents didn't really, my mom wanted to protect me like so badly. And my mom had her own body image issues too. And I passed down. So I think like that kind of fell on my shoulders too. I saw that as an example. And, you know, I was carrying a lot of baggage that was not mine. I was carrying a lot of baggage that was not mine. And, you know, I think that when I realized and really forgave myself and everyone around me, they were doing the best that they could. But I think they saw my personality and they were like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, this is not it. And I think, again, that's how I fell into that relationship, was because I thought of that as an out. I saw him as a way to help me escape that protection that my parents were trying to do just to keep me safe. But, you know, I so wanted to find myself and thought that that was going to be the way to do it. And, you know, eventually I did find myself, but
it was the way to do it. It just, you had to go through it to get out of it, right?
I had to get through it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I literally am getting teary-eyed because I feel so much like your story. I did the same thing. I was a Spitfire kid who always had a microphone and a tape deck and had zero fears about what people thought of me. And then the world did the same thing. And I think we don't talk a lot about women who have a particular light. And when the world tries to dim that light, what happens is we do get anxious, and we do get I also had eating disorder, and we do get all these things, you know, happen to us, and it does take us into our mid-30s, right? And to figure out like, oh, fuck these people, I'm shining, right? I think what's, you know, what I appreciate your vulnerability, and I think, you know, I once had a psychic say something to me that I carry with me a lot. She basically was like, look, Olivia, the book is written on you. Like, you can't fail. The book's already done, right? So like whatever you're doing, wherever you are on your journey, is exactly where you're supposed to be. And it really helped remind me that like, okay, well, I'm going to shine as bright as I want to shine then, right? Because we are not, and like, you know, my marriage was very similar. It was very toxic and kept me down. And it was as soon as I started shining my light a little more, right, that's when the marriage ended. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because I hear it a lot. We hear it a lot from a lot of people. The women who have a particular brand of light that they're going to go change the world, they tend to get with these partners that love to not only put out their light, but really stomp on it. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm sure you encounter a lot of other people now in that scenario.
Well, let's get into the psychology of this, because, you know, because one of the reasons why I got my master's degree in psychology was because of that relationship. And you know, I mean, IO psychology isn't about relationships, but I do have a lot of my research in grad school was around body image and neurodivergency. But I think that one of the reasons why a lot of high achieving women go for men like that is because a lot of reasons. I think that people see your greatness. Let me rewind. Having low self-esteem, and just because you're a high achiever does not mean that you have high self-esteem. And I think that's a really big thing to remember. There's a reason why you're high achieving. And I think we have to re-establish what high achieving actually means, because I no longer consider myself a hard worker. I am a completer and a great rester. Things don't have to be perfect. Like, I value completion.
I'm stealing that. Yes. A completer and a great rester. I'm stealing that.
Yes.
After my nap after this.
Yes, absolutely. I value completion over perfection any day. And I think for a really long time, I overachieved because I just wanted someone to tell me good job. I just wanted that approval so badly that I was willing to take it from anyone. And I always say that when you deal with low self-esteem, it is the most expensive thing that you will carry. It will cost you jobs, experiences, life when you have low self-esteem. When you turn that shit around and you start to build yourself up, the ROI on that is incredible.
Yeah.
Because then that's when you start cashing in, right? And not to make it like capitalistic, but I think that's like the best
with
way
energy,
to look
but
at
There's
it.
a metaphor.
energy.
There's a
It's
metaphor.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's energy. I look at energy like money. I refuse to go bankrupt, but I have my wallet of money, and who I give it out to is really imperative. And I'm not going to go bankrupt on certain people. I refuse to, because I used to do that. So learning that process of having low self-esteem and what it cost me was really, really important. But he saw my greatness, and he knew I didn't see my greatness. And I think that is really important to remember. I cannot emphasize this enough. Understand your greatness. There are going to be people who are going to tell you that you suck, and it may not even be that big.
Right.
There were so many like little things that he did from the get that should have been red flags to me that I just brushed off. And they were little dips in my self-esteem that, because I already had low self-esteem, I used that as evidence that I still was a horrible person. I truly believed I was a horrible person because he gave me the evidence to push that.
You couldn't win.
I couldn't win. And then he would turn it around and then be like, but you're so great. And it was so confusing because one minute I was a piece of shit. And the next minute, the minute you figure out how great you are, and you don't listen to anyone, you'll rule the world. Like, what? Yeah. Like, what? What? You just told me what a horrible person I was 2 minutes ago. So understanding your greatness, your strengths, understanding that you are a good person. Listen, being a good person doesn't mean that you're a perfect person. You're going to make mistakes. Everyone is human. I've made mistakes. I am not a perfect person at all, but I know right and wrong. And the last thing I ever want to do is make someone feel bad, to make them feel bad. And that's how I always check myself whenever I get into that thought process of like, am I a good person? Like, I don't ever want to purposely hurt someone, right?
Right.
So I think the reason why so many women get into these relationships is because we are pushing down our light and we just want someone to flick the switch back up. And we look for these different, I guess, like switchers, right? Who we think are going to be the person that's going to be like, oh, yes, you are great. You are great. And really, they're just trying to steal your light, boo. They themselves can't light themselves up. So they keep taking and taking and taking and taking, like the Grim Reaper.
Yep.
And then you're left with nothing.
Yep.
So I really I cannot emphasize enough, as a high achieving woman, right? As someone who, and my mom would always ask me that, like, you're so confident. Like, why did you stay for so long? And I think it's just, you really get to a point where if you already have shitty self-esteem to begin with, having that voice, they're so good. They're so good.
They're so good.
They're so good that you really start to believe it.
And the people pleasing, right? I mean, constant people pleasing.
Constant people pleasing. Constant. And it's really scary to go from people pleasing to no. Not even anything else. Just no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing like that. Like that felt dangerous to me in that relationship. And I think that that's the biggest thing. Like, if I could tell, and this could happen at any age, but I think if you're a young person in their 20s and you have someone in your life who, again, it doesn't even have to start off as someone telling you you're a piece of shit. It started off with him making fun of me because I wore sandals on our second date, flip-flops on our second date. Little things like that.
Yep, mine started on the first date too.
Yeah, little things like
Mhm.
that. Why are you wearing that? Why would you wear that out? Why would you say it like that? Little things like that,
Yep.
where you now start to second guess yourself and be like, oh, well, okay. I mean, I didn't mean to
Yep.
do that. That's how it starts. It
Yeah.
never starts. I think so many people talk about like the big fights,
Yeah.
but it starts really
Mhm.
small.
Yeah,
And
really
I think
insidious.
so much of it is like that is the person you're most intimate with emotionally, psychologically, right? So even though it could seem like, oh my God, Nikki is such a confident, secure person to the world, right? And that's what you're putting out to the world. Inside, you're like, I still think I'm kind of, this isn't all an act and I'm not really that person. But
Yep.
this guy knows me better than anyone in the world. That's my person. That's the
And
love
they
of
will
my life.
tell you that. They will
Right.
tell you, I know you better than you. I know you better than you. And
Mhm.
you sit there and you're like, oh my God. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and being like, who am I? Like just blank, just
Yeah.
blank in the face. And I just lost myself
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a means to survive, as a means to survive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it happened so many times
Yep.
that it just got to a point where, again, I couldn't do it anymore. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore. And if you're into astrology, like I'm a
Mhm.
Gemini rising. So when I was going through my Saturn return, we broke up at 31. That was in my 8th house of relationships in Capricorn.
Mm.
So it was like that shit. And 8th house is like all about long-term relationships. So
Yeah.
that like it was
Yeah, I know, I get it. My
wild.
divorce was during my Pluto return, or my Pluto
Yeah.
and I had multiple astrologers that were like, oh my God, like, what did you go through? This is the hardest time in your life. And I was like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was the hardest time in my life.
Yeah.
Nikki, when were you diagnosed with ADHD?
So I actually recently got diagnosed last year.
Yeah.
I finally went to a psychiatrist
Yeah.
and I got diagnosed with it's so interesting, like especially coming from like a psychology background too, because like going into that stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, like,
Yeah.
but I have, I didn't know how bad my depression was. Like I knew I was dealing with depression. I didn't know how bad I was dealing with depression. It was really bad. I dealt with generalized anxiety disorder, which was no shocker there.
Mhm.
And then I also have a little sprinkle of OC, obsessive compulsive perfectionist disorder, which is not like regular OCD, where not that regular OCD is
Right.
regular, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but basically I deal with being obsessed with being perfect. So which
Maybe that's what I have.
Yeah,
yeah,
you definitely
I
have
was
something there.
I was blown away by that diagnosis. Like
That's
I was like,
fascinating.
what? But yeah, so it was definitely like a big thing for me just
Yeah.
because I knew something was up. And traditionally, like I said, like I was more of an anxious kid. I wasn't a great student. I was like a B student, like
Mhm.
I was more anxious because I needed to be perfect in school.
Right.
But once I got to college, that's where it started clicking for me. And I was actually able to like really academically shine. And then when I was in grad school, I got diagnosed after grad school. But when I was in grad school, I really noticed something was going on because I would, and I did this in college too, but really in grad school, I was able to write like 5 pages, like 5 papers in a weekend and get like an A on all of them. I mean, like I wrote my thesis paper, which was 40 pages long in a day.
Yeah, that's
and got an
uh-huh.
A.
I get it.
I graduated
Yeah.
grad school with a 4.0.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of like when I spoke to other people, they're like, oh, well, you can't have ADHD because you get really good
You function
grades.
well, right?
And I function well. And I'm like, that's not true because I knew that wasn't true. One, based off of the research that I did in grad school,
Right.
but also like I look at depression and like no one would know that how depressed I was.
Yeah.
For multitude different areas of my life in different time spectrums of my life. I would tell people how depressed I was, and they'd be like, but you seem so happy. Oh, do I? Like, and I just am functionally really great at hiding that shit and hiding all of it. And that's where I knew, like, if I can hide my depression that way, I can hide being neurodivergent really easy. You know, having ADHD, that like I could hide that too. So yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I was diagnosed last year too, and it was like something clicked, and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is my entire life." I have inattentive, and so it's the constant chatter in my head, and I'm definitely neurodiverse. And I started medication for it, and the unmasking has been, I've been in therapy my whole life off and on. The unmasking from ADHD is something I've never expected in my life, and it's very hard to explain to people, but it's like becoming a completely different person.
Oh, 100%. So my boyfriend, he is such an angel, truly. Like, that's how I know I've grown and have healed so much, because of how wonderful my relationship is. He truly is incredible, and I love him so much. And he really has, you're in a great relationship when that person helps you love yourself more. Like, I've learned to love myself more through this relationship, and obviously I love him so deeply, but seeing how he accepts and just loves the unmasked version of me is truly, like, has helped me so much. And we were in the Bahamas for my birthday in November, for both our birthdays in November, and we were seeing dolphins, and I was so excited. Like, I was freaking the F out about this. And we got in the water, right? And, well, it was before we got in the water. They were like swimming around, and he was sitting next to me, and there's these 3 girls across from me. And I was just totally like stimming out. Like, I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like freaking out. I wish I had the picture of it, because it's actually really funny. But they started laughing at me. They looked at me and they started laughing at me. And I instantly felt like that feeling of like, because I was completely unmasked, right? Like, completely just like was just in my element, and just like, oh my God, oh my God. And it makes me like emotional every time I tell the story. He turns to me, he grabs my hand, and he goes, I am so happy that I get to see you this happy. It makes me so thrilled to be here with you and see you feel this happy. And not only does he say that, but for Christmas, he gets me this block. He has a picture of like us taking a picture with the dolphin, and like you like plug it in and it lights up the picture. Gives it to me. He goes, because he knows how much I deal with anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And he goes, anytime you start to feel really sad or upset, I want you to turn this on as a reminder of how you deserve to feel happy all of the time. And I love you so much. And I love you for who you are. And I swear to God, I was like, I have never met any, I mean, this man accepts me more than I accept you know what I mean? Like, it's wild. And I just think it's a great, coming from where I came from my past relationship, to be in a relationship like this, where it is just so accepting. And I think of it, this is the best analogy that I can come up with, the best metaphor for this. When you are the light, right? You're like a flame. And there are going to be some people that when you're thrown at them, they are not going to be able to hold the flame because it's too hot. And they're either going to try to do anything they can to take that flame out, stomp on it, anything to not hold it, to make it smaller. But there's going to be other people who are so equipped, who are ready to not only hold your fire, but make that shit bigger and want you to grow your flames, right? And that's how I look at every single fucking person in my life now is I only fuck with people who can handle my fire. And just because you can't handle my fire, like, okay, like that's nothing on me. That's you. I think that's what I love about that saying is it takes the responsibility off of me. It's not my fault that you can't hold my fire. You're just not equipped to. You don't have the equipment to do it.
Nikki,
and that just, it gives so much like freedom to be yourself.
I love that. You're making me cry. Yes, I love that. No, I mean,
Olivia and I, like, you know, Olivia has been through it with her marriage and divorce. And I think for her to hear about other people's stories of like true love where somebody is like truly seen and loved and accepted, and like not like I love you in spite of your faults, I love you because of your faults, right? Like I think I love you because not in spite, never in spite. Yes, yes, and is always their thing with relationships. And so like I know how much that means to her to hear that story.
It is. It's beautiful. I just love it. I mean, you're clearly, as a person that motivates other people and coaches other people, I'm sure that all of your clients walk away feeling so excited about their life.
I think my biggest goal is to help people feel seen. You know, I think that there's so many times where I haven't felt seen. And it just takes one person to see you. It just takes one person to look at you and say, I see you. I get it. And you can do this. And that's it. That's all it fucking takes to light that fire back up. I truly do believe that. 100%. And that's why I'm so passionate, not only just like I'm very multi-passionate and you know, I have fitness and I have psychology and I have all of these other things, but all with the root of just helping people be seen. You know, I really do think that when we can instill that thought process of I'm going to be bold no matter what, I'm going to show up no matter what, I'm going to be myself no matter what, that is an act of badassery, not even bravery, because fuck that. Like me being myself is not being brave. Like I used to think that for a really long time, and I just feel like that just adds an extra layer of shame of like, well, why is it brave to be me? Like, no,
what's so bad about me?
What's so bad about being me? Like, what's so brave? That's like the when people are like, oh, that was actually smart, or like, wow, that's so brave of you to wear a bikini. Like, why?
So fat, so brave. That's right.
Like,
wow,
so fat, so brave. Like, shut up. Like,
exactly.
are you kidding? So to me, it's like, it's just badass to be yourself, because there's so many people who don't, and anyone who has the audacity to say something nasty to you, they are the one with the problem. Imagine being that person. Imagine being that type of person that's going to take the time to tell you what a piece of poop you are. I'm sorry. Am I the person that's wasting my time being a keyboard asshole on the daily basis? No, not me. Could it be me? I'm out here making people feel good. You can't say the same. So like, that's how I think about it.
I love that. I love
100%.
So I love that.
So aligned.
Yes. So Nikki, if somebody is going through a fresh start in life, what would be some like general wise words that you could impart on them?
If you can, go to therapy. If you can, go to therapy. I think that one of the biggest, I don't want to say mistakes that I made, but I went into therapy pretty quickly after my breakup. But I also like listened to some friends that maybe weren't like the best people to listen to. Your friends aren't therapists. And I say that as someone with a psych background. Like, your friends aren't therapists. Have supportive friends, but there's some things that your friends aren't going to be able to break down for you that a therapist can. So try to find a therapist if you can. There's so many other options too. I know there's sliding scales. Like, go find a therapist that fits for you and that feels right for you. I cannot recommend that enough. Number 2, give yourself grace. I think it's really, really hard to step into a fresh start and think like just wanting it to be the end, right? We step into a fresh start wishing for the end, because it starts always feel really nerve-wracking. And I think it's important to remember that just because you're nervous doesn't mean it's bad. I think we, especially as someone who deals with anxiety, I always really associated being nervous as bad.
Yeah.
Being nervous is just the same as being excited. It's just a different action, you know? So instead of thinking, wow, like I'm so like, I can't do this, just think, okay, how can I be more curious about this? How can I have more grace about this? I'm not going to be perfect, but I can be curious and I can learn how to complete things, and I can give myself a little bit of grace in this process, because you really are not only starting a new chapter, but you're starting a different version of yourself. I'm not going to say a new version of yourself, because I think you are your most powerful self already. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Like you know who the fuck you are already. No one needs to empower you. Empowerment means that I'm giving you the power. You already have the power, right? So remember that, and really give yourself grace, because it takes time. And I think it's so much more. I think of when you're rebuilding, it really is like a house, you know, like we're always so in a rush to put the furniture in, but you got to make sure that foundation is good. You know, if the foundation isn't good, a storm's going to come again and it's going to knock it down. I'm now at a point where my foundation is pretty strong, and I can start now putting furniture in, you know, and that's a really cool thing to do. But it took 3 years of complete like surrender and tears and falling down, getting back up, falling down, getting back up, trying. People tell me, what are you doing? I've been so many different shades of red throughout the last 3 years, because I was just so desperate just to feel like some slither of myself, when I realized like I've always been myself, you know. I think, and I'll say this because I think this could relate to a lot of people, and I'll use my hair for an example. When I started that relationship, I was 22 going into 23. I'm 22 going into 23, like around that age. I'm 34 now, right? And like I said, have tried a lot of different hair colors the last couple of years, the last 3 years, because he really took claim over claiming that he thought of the red hair and he thought of all that. And that really bothered the shit out of me, because that was not the case. And I think I was fighting that for a really long time with my hair over the last 3 years, because I wanted ownership over myself. And like a couple months ago, dyed it really dark and had this epiphany of like, wait, what am I doing? I need to go back to my bright red hair, not because he did it for me. And that's what I had when I was 24. I dyed my hair bright red when I was 24. And for a really long time, just, you know, he was like, you have that hair because I thought of it. No. And I kept fighting this evolution of trying to reinvent myself, when really it's just coming back to myself. That's really what it is. It's coming back to that 24, that 22, 23, 24-year-old who knew who she was. I knew who I was back then, but unfortunately just had some really crappy people around me trying to tell me different, you know? And now I get to go back to her, and I get to make my hair bright red again, and I get to be loud and be proud and shine in a way that I have never shined before. And that's me. You know what I mean? This is the chapter of me. This is the chapter where I get to claim, this is my shit. I did this shit. No one helped me with this shit. I did this. And I think that is the proudest thing. And it's so scary starting over. It is the scariest thing that you will ever do. But I honestly can say that it is the proudest thing that I ever did, was make the decision to start over again. And I'm so freaking glad that I did.
I love that. Yeah, we're glad you did too. We're very proud of you, because we know how hard it is.
To see what happens when Nikki shines as bright as Nikki can shine too.
I know.
It's going to be amazing.
The world is going to go on fire.
The world is not prepared.
Right. The world's not ready.
Last question before we let you go. What is the last thing that you ate and truly loved?
My boyfriend is a chef, and he made me a strawberry cheesecake for my birthday, and it was homemade. It was so good. It was so good. And it was made with so much love. Like this man truly like, oh, it was like really adorable. It was really cute. He also, we didn't eat this because it ended up not happening, but he also made my mom for her birthday a sugar-free cheesecake. And it was the most, he was up till 12 o'clock at night making it. And I just thought it was, we didn't get to eat it, but it was probably one of the nicest things that like, I was like, oh my
How did
God.
you meet your boyfriend?
At work.
Okay.
At work. My manager, I was actually dating someone else at the time, not serious, but like just dating. And I ended things with him because I was like, you're annoying. And then my manager was like, hey, one of the chefs downstairs says he has a crush on you. And I was like, oh, really? And you know, went down there, whatever. He showed me a picture of lasagna that he made for Thanksgiving. And I was like, I mean, I'm Italian, so that's all I needed to see. I was like, lasagna. And what ended up happening was I went down there one day, a couple of days after that, and I had my number written down. And I was like, I'm just going to shoot my shot. And I went up to him and I was like, so a little birdie told me that you were wondering if I was single. And the look on his face, he was like, hold on a second. And he like ran around. He's like, what did a little birdie tell you? I was like, a little birdie told me that you were asking me if I was single. And he was like, are you? And I go, I am. I was like, here's my number. He's like, what are you doing Friday? I'm like, nothing. And he's like, all right, let's go get dinner. And that literally, I'm telling you, like, it was that easy.
Yeah.
And
isn't that funny how it's that like when somebody's just like good and they like want to be with you, it's just easy.
It was that easy. 3-4 weeks later, he asked me to be his girlfriend because he was like, I can't let you go.
Yeah.
He's like, someone else is gonna scoop you up. I got
I was gonna say it's gotta be very, if someone doesn't like you, I would imagine that they're very sick and
twisted. You're a good barometer. You're a good barometer.
So Nikki, what's coming up for you this next year, finishing off this year?
So I am actually launching my first podcast called
I was gonna say you need a podcast, girl.
It's called Brainy Conversations, and it's talking to other people about their brain and their journey to acceptance to their brain and the different journeys to it. And sometimes it's not at that place of acceptance, but we all have so many different stories of where we've been and different experiences. So I'm in the middle of recording that right now, which is really exciting.
Amazing.
And I'm really pumped about that. I am relaunching and rebuilding my virtual gym, Rock Your Body Online right now. I'm switching over platforms. So I'm doing a big like rebrand for that. So really just, I want to start doing like in-person stuff again. I think that I miss that so much. So I think probably towards like the summer, I'm going to start pushing some like workshops. And I think my biggest thing is like really just, I think finally now that grad school is over and I feel like my like really back down to earth, just really using my voice and being visible. I think that's I'm one of those people that I feel like I just have to be out there. If I just show up, it comes to me. Like I just have to show up and it comes to me. And I think the goal for this year is just not to pull back. Like it's just a whoop, like be out there, even if it's a little uncomfortable. So
I love that. Well, we're so excited, to have our time with you today and just like to know you and to have you in our orbit. And you're such a like, I can't express enough. Your energy is so gorgeous and honest, and you are gonna like, this is just the beginning for you, like truly just the beginning. So you come back anytime to chat because we would love to talk to you about so many other things. Thank you for being here with us today, Nikki.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here, and we're so proud of you.
A Fresh Story is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to begin again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at afreshstory.com.